Hi.
Hi, Holly.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on. Anyone who happens to be watching this, I have my lovely friend Holly here. Holly is a feminine energy coach, and you also help women through burnout. So you're a feminine energy and holistic coach. And I know that you've helped me a great deal with my various issues that I have with burnout and PMDD. So yeah, Holly, how did you get into this work? And it'd be great to hear your story, like how you got into it and how you're helping women kind of go more into their feminine, divine feminine, rather than so much in their masculine.
Yeah, no, definitely. Um, it started from, well, if we go back to when I was a child, I was always like, I felt quite different to a lot of people around me, just felt so expressive and felt as though I had such deep emotions that felt quite hard to handle and hard for my parents to handle at times when, you've got this inner rage in you and you're wanting to just scratch and do whatever you want to your parents, even though that's not the right way to deal with it. Obviously, these emotions were just pouring out of me. Whereas, I have a sister and she has a completely different way of being, isn't as sensitive as me. And right from a child, I'd struggle with wearing certain clothes, jeans. I'd have a paddy if I was made to wear jeans because they'd be so tight. And all my
Mm.
sensory emotions just felt super heightened compared to the natural person or the average person. So I've always been deeply sensitive. And I think you start to internalize, or I did anyway, that, oh, it's not that acceptable to be so expressive. And I started to kind of
Mm.
internalize that and start to become the good girl to people please and make sure everybody's emotions around were okay instead of, upheavaling emotion and causing chaos around, which to me is what a woman is. We are what I like to say perfect chaos. We just feel what we feel. We're not afraid to be who we are. If you're free feminine, if you're not suppressed and in your wounded feminine, and that's what I really feel I was born into this world with, that expressive feminine energy. And as I internalized that, it manifested into an eating disorder. I wouldn't even talk about my emotions. I wouldn't even talk about what I was going through. And so turning and what it felt like I was led to by either my guides or whoever led me to it, it felt like it was a practice that helped me through that time was journaling. And the only
Mm.
way to get out and express what I had stuck inside of me was to write whatever I was feeling at that time. And that really helped me.
Mm.
There was a decision I made just because I knew, I was starting to become skinnier, people were starting to notice. I also felt so dull and depressed and wanted to be a normal teenager. And so
Mm.
I just made a decision one day, and I know it sounds really simple and it wasn't a quick fix, but when you get to a breaking point, and I think it is so good sometimes when people get to that breaking point, because that's when you have to flip the coin and change. And I just said, I just want to feel like a normal teenager, and I am deciding to not think about food every minute of the day and check my body in the mirror every morning to just try and live my life more free again, like I did as a child. And so I made that decision.
And this, because you were a dancer, weren't you? So was your eating disorder when you were in that industry?
Yeah, so I've danced ever since I was three, same as my sister. We loved dancing and expressing ourselves through dance and singing and all that kind of thing. And you have to wear super tight leotards, you're looking in the mirror all the
Mm.
time. It was back in the day when I was younger, really strict teachers of, had a great time of dancing as well, but it's not the love and approach that you'd probably see a bit more nowadays. It was very like strict as maybe like a ballet teacher would be.
Yeah.
So if your toe wasn't pointed right, it's like, come on, you've got to be perfect. So that's probably the perfectionism element coming out as well that came into me needing to be perfect with what I was putting into my body and things like that. I also was obsessed with things like America's Next Top Model and seeing perfect, beautiful figures on magazine covers. And then also I started a pantomime at that age at 14, and I was around a lot of older women which were more developed than me, and I looked up to them and wanted to be really slim like them. And I was
Yeah.
slim, but it was such a distortion of my mind. And so definitely media as well as dancing. Yeah.
So I guess it's being in that industry. I mean, I can't even imagine how competitive it is and how strict on what you can eat and what you can't eat and being indoctrinated from that young age. It's kind of combine that with the media. It's kind of, it's quite a lethal combination, really, and it's not even surprising. Um, so just to go back, you said you had all this energy and you felt like you were too confined. And was that because of what society put on you, like you should go down a certain career path or be academic at school? What do you feel like that was about?
Do you mean more so when I started suppressing who I was?
Yeah, yeah, because I just what interests me about you is you've never gone down the kind of the traditional corporate
Yeah.
career path. From meeting you and knowing you and working with you, you're someone who really, really knows themselves at a very young age,
Mm.
which is unusual. I haven't actually met anyone who's so self-aware and knows what they want and who they are at your age, which is a massive compliment, by the way.
So, um, to be honest, I think because I had dance, I didn't enjoy school. I really didn't like the structure of it. I didn't feel like it suited me. I always felt exhausted having to go to dancing as well as school. I wasn't super academic. I wasn't bad either. It just was like nothing's really interested me in the logical side of things. I just wanted to express myself through dance. And
Mm.
my main
Yeah,
theme of my dance was to tell a story with my body. And so
yeah,
everything for me has to have such a deep meaning. And I just knew that I was going to go and dance as a cruise on a cruise line as a dancer. And so I didn't really put too much effort into school. It just wasn't really something I knew I was going to continue with. But of
got it. Yeah.
naive me was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a dancer for the rest of my life, and it didn't really happen that way. But I did go on the cruise ship, and that was my only dream as a child. So I'm so glad that I got to do that.
That's amazing. And so how did you get from dancing into this kind of work, helping women empower themselves and find their intuitive feminine side? How did you make that transition?
I have gone through many ups and downs in my life, and I'm so grateful for that because when I've been in the low moments, I really feel as though I have alchemized the emotions that I felt and let it be the thing that grows me and empowers me over holds me back and keeps me small. And
Yeah.
2020 specifically was when I had this big awakening, what people call the spiritual awakening. And I was on the hormonal pill at the time as well. And I just knew I needed to get off of it.
Mm-mm.
I felt like I'd awakened, like, why are women taught to go on pills just to cover up the issues that they're having, like PCOS, which I
Yes.
have, and endometriosis or whatever it is. It's like, oh yeah, just go on the pill and everything will be fine, even though it's got so many side
Mm-mm.
effects. It just that was the first moment that I started to look deeper into feminism, women's rights, and how it's just not as obvious as what it used to be back in the day. So I felt really lost during that time because, I wasn't a dancer anymore. So I had to shed the identity of no longer thinking I was going to be a dancer, even though I could still carry on moving my body and expressing myself. I just couldn't see what was ahead of me.
Mm.
I
Did you feel as well, sorry to interrupt, did you feel as well that because of the eating disorder and everything that goes with dance, that's not the reason that you did it in the first place? It kind of spoiled the actual reason that you wanted to get into it and do it to express yourself.
mm, yeah, I felt too much pressure with having to
Yeah.
a certain way. And it was just too much for me. I mean, the industry, when I got into that a bit older in the professional industry, was just so cutthroat and it's not for the faint of heart. And even though I know I'm a strong person, I just don't believe in molding people in a certain way. And yes,
Yeah.
dance industry's gotten a lot more versatile and a lot better, but it's still got a long way to go. But it just was like, it's meant to be a creative art. It's meant to be just expressing yourself, and we're still being confined to make ourselves look a certain way because it's more desirable. So women have a lot, I mean, men as well, but we had, especially as a dance background, you have a lot to live up to and to not only
Mm.
look a certain way, but perform at the best abilities you can, no matter how you're feeling, wherever, even if you're on your period, whatever it is, there's no excuse. You just got to push beyond your limits with your body. And I think
Right.
I became so out of tune because even though, yes, I
Mm.
was connecting to my body, I had to push myself because if I had a competition at the weekend, I couldn't cancel it. We've paid for it, we're going. I've got to push my body, even though I probably got sprained muscles in my back or like whatever
Yeah.
injuries I used to get. And it's traumatizing for the body because if your body's not, if you're not listening, if you're not listening to your body, then
Mm.
your body doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
In 2020 was when everything, because you had to sit with yourself, that's when everything just kind of exploded for me. I was like just questioning everything. And it wasn't until I had a lovely life coach at the time that helped me just with the one session, but she actually led me to go and do a holistic health coaching course. Um, and it's interesting because I didn't know what holistic health coaching was at that time, but I knew that I never wanted to go down the pill type of route ever again. And there's
Yeah.
nothing, I don't have anything against people that do because you have to do what works for you. And if it does for a period of time, then that's great. But I just knew holistic was for me. I love movement. I love, connecting with myself, and a holistic way of being just felt like another step to that. So I guess taking my holistic health coaching course, teaching kids yoga as well as um, yoga for adults as well. I had all this spare time to be able to use to start delving into different ways and exploring how to understand myself more and support myself more over just going to the doctor and being told that
Yeah.
you just need to have a baby and you'll be fine to
Is
get
that
rid of
what they
it.
said?
Yeah, and it's funny because my nonna had the same thing. She's no longer here, but she had, so it's something that can run in the family. She had PCOS, and she said that the doctors just told her that she just needs to have a baby and it'll go away. And it's
Ugh.
like, what?
Oh my God.
No,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. So you had all this time in the COVID times to explore the feminine energy. And what's really interesting to me is the fact that you mentioned before you had to perform even if it was the time of the month or you were feeling run down or if you had an injury, there's no getting out of it. So
Yeah,
really you got onto this path from going so against the natural order and going so against the grain into this work.
yeah, exactly. And I think I've always been more aware of my emotions and energy levels throughout my period because it felt a lot more intense compared to those around me. I always used to look and think, how have they got so much energy all the time? Why am I feeling like I'm struggling to just get through? And I do
Mm,
think it's because I'm very similar to my mum in the sense that, she had quite intense periods as well. And so she knew and really actually gave me a lot of empathy because we were both understood what it felt like. And we started
mm,
to notice that it's before you come on your period, that's when you start to feel a little bit more sensitive. I used to sometimes come down with colds or just feel more achy in my body the week or two before. It's called the luteal phase before your
yeah,
period. But
yeah.
my lifestyle was dancing. I had no way to just say, oh, I just need 2 weeks off to just take it slow,
Yeah.
You just don't have it.
Is so true though, isn't it? Because in the society we live in, there's so much go, 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 and we live in a society where we don't go with the natural rhythms of being a woman and it's slowing down. And I'd like to get your take on all this kind of um like feminism when we
Mm.
see like girl boss. I hate that term.
I know.
Um, but do you know what I mean? Like, oh, women can do it all. Like women trying to be like men, and it kind of destroys what I actually don't like that word feminism. It just annoys me. I've said it. But do you see what I mean? It's not respecting that men and women are wired differently, and women are much more intuitive and go with the cycles of life in their heart space. And that's not saying that we should all be stay at home wives and 50s housewives,
Yeah.
but I'd love to get your take on that, because this day and age there's so much like female CEO and like hustle culture.
Yeah, so I resonate with that a lot because I always have seen myself as someone that has been a high achiever, always wanted to do the best that I can do no matter what. And you realize, oh, yes, so much has happened within history that women have got to the place where, they can go to work, they can actually live out their dreams. They're not as suppressed where they can't even speak how they feel or go after what they actually want. So I do love that freedom that we have now.
Of
But I think
course, yeah.
the reason why I don't work in the corporate environment, one is because I knew that I wouldn't be able to show up every single day with the same amount of energy as a man usually, because I have such deeper needs and need for self-care. I'm a lot more sensitive, and
Yeah.
that felt hard at first because it's like, well, that's probably where you can earn the most money, right? In a corporate job, that's what
Mm.
you tend to think. But I just knew that wasn't an option for me. I wouldn't be able to even survive that. So anyone that does, I'm always like, wow, you're incredible. But what I do think is not great in the corporate environment that is yet to be understood, and I do have hope that one day in the future it will change, is that women can't fully thrive in all the amazingness that we have to offer in a corporate environment because of the structure that they're confined to. Because the men do operate in that 24-hour cycle of, yes, they go and get up every day and they're fine each day pretty much. We have that 28-day to 45-day cycle. And so women are expected to still probably perform at the same kind of level as a man nowadays, and it's just not possible in what foundation is being created for them. And it really does
Yeah.
pain me because I know that there is still space for women in a corporate world, but people don't understand women. Only
Mm.
2 years ago were we actually put into scientific research. So yes, people are still catching up to how women actually work. And even
Yeah.
this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because even I was like, I didn't like being a woman because it felt like I
Mm.
couldn't survive in this world, or I couldn't thrive
Yeah.
in this world. And so that's why I went on that quest to really understand myself as a woman so that I didn't feel like it was a curse, and that I could see that being a woman is actually such an incredible thing.
Yeah, and it's something that our society really doesn't celebrate, in the sense of what's happened with feminism. I call it like the dark side of feminism, and it's this hustle culture, and it's doing high intensity exercise, and no one tells you about this. And it was only from talking to you and having our coaching sessions that I learned that in the phase, what's it called, the luteal phase, was that?
You too.
Yeah, yeah, before your period, you shouldn't be doing spin classes or body pump. And it was when I spoke to you about it, it felt like such a weight off my shoulders, because you don't get this information. I hadn't come across this information. I was just kind of pushing myself. And I'm naturally a very type A masculine person, believe it or not. I am very, if you look at my astrological chart, it's all masculine. So I'm very type A. I've also worked in the corporate world. Um, I have my to-do list, and I'm very kind of action driven. And for you to say that, like, well, just don't do so much. It's like, what? But and I really respect that, and I love the way that you teach that.
Yeah, well, I used to be the same. I think because I've learned how much it affected my body, pushing myself to the limits. And it did go beyond after dancing as well, because I think women have it ingrained in them that they need to look a certain way. And, it's now not skinny anymore, it's to be strong, isn't it? And
Mm,
you might not feel as worthy if you're not going to do the hit workout, which is the big craze at the moment, to, you know, work as fast as you can for those 30 minutes, when actually, again, that might be great for a man, but is it great for a woman? Because I know in the phase that I'm in right now, I'm in my luteal phase. I've not been to the gym this week because I need energy for other things.
Got
And
it. Yeah.
listening intuitively to our bodies. I know that when I spoke to you the other day, you were absolutely exhausted. Do you think that
Mm.
when you're exhausted, you've got the energy to go and go on a cycle and go as fast as you can? Like, you need that energy for your body because we are preparing to menstruate, to have a period. Like, we've got more going on than what a man does in our bodies.
Yeah, definitely. And they don't teach this, or I haven't come across this, and it's just very interesting because if you Google like going to the gym, and I don't do HIIT workouts anymore, but even that, like, oh, you should go 2 to 3 times a week, and you just think, oh well, that's 2 to 3 times a week, but like you said, we should really be listening to our bodies and getting more in the flow of our cycles.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because we still want to move as well. We still want to take care of ourselves. So I guess that guideline that's put out there of 2 to 3 times a week, I understand. But everyone is so individual, which is why I love a holistic approach and a one-to-one approach to mapping out what your individual energy levels are throughout each week. Because
Yeah.
even though the typical guideline for a woman's cycle, a menstrual cycle, is like the luteal phase, you're more low energy kind of thing, it's not exactly the same for everybody. And so that's why I just think it's important to connect with your body and listen to yourself over thinking, oh, I must go and exercise because that's good for my body. But it
Yeah.
actually disconnected from what we're actually why we're actually exercising and what
Yeah.
kind of exercise will be good for us. So yeah, it is hard.
Yeah, but it's so important, and I love that you're doing this work. So if anyone's watching here and they are quite burned out, say they work in the corporate world and they have PMS or PMDD like myself, what top tips would you give, and what would you offer on your coaching course to for them to be more in their feminine energy?
Oh, so many things, but first of all, I would say nervous system regulation, understanding that is massive because
Nervous system regulation.
yeah,
Yeah.
understanding your nervous system and being in that fight, flight, freeze mode where the blood's draining down from your brain into your body, making your mind more dumb, and just you're just surviving. Basically, it's survival mode.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the other end is when you're in that rest and digest, you feel like you're floating, everything feels good. And obviously, we're not always going to be in that mode forever, but knowing how to regulate yourself is so important. And even though I was a dancer, I didn't know how to regulate my nervous system. And the two coincide with your emotions and your nervous system. And if you're suppressing your emotions, your body isn't going to be able to regulate itself. So they come hand.
Ah,
So I'd
oh,
say
okay. Yeah. It
breath.
sounds so obvious when you explain it like this. It sounds so obvious, but I genuinely didn't know. But now just listening to you talk about it, it's like, of course, it's so simple. It makes sense.
It is kind of crazy that we don't learn this in school.
No.
We don't learn how to take care of ourselves. We just learn how to become a producer, basically, to produce things
Yes.
for the world so that you're working away and that kind of thing. You get new grades in your academics and then you go and get a job and you work your life away. No one tells you how to take care of yourself, do they? It's not a thing in school, which is sad.
It's it's so true. And this hustle culture, I mean, I'm guilty of it myself because I'm yeah, I have a tendency, if I haven't done enough, I feel it's like a guilt complex. I haven't, what have I done? I haven't done enough, or, I need to be producing, I need to be doing more, when actually you can just be.
Yeah, just being is like sounds so simple, but actually can be quite difficult, especially because women have been so indoctrinated to think that they're not enough because, there's adverts saying that you need filler, you can't have wrinkles. There's so much pressure on us to be skinny or to look a certain way. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's slowly ingrained in us to just not feel enough. And we go into that
Yeah.
cycle of that shame, the guilt, the not enough feeling. And that's why people get binge eating disorders and all any disorder really, because it's, you're trying to look for something external to fill the void of that discomfort that we can feel just for being a woman.
Definitely. And what's your views on the kind of this CEO and women trying to be like men? What are your thoughts about that?
I do think there's a place for some people to be leaders, but I think that we can be CEOs in a completely different way. And I do think we need more women as leaders because they can bring a more empathetic approach to it. So as long as they are still embodying, and obviously it doesn't work for every woman, of course, but as long as they're still embodying their feminine essence, I think that can really change a lot of things in the world. It'll soften the corporate world so much more, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the corporate world that think, if they don't get that one thing right, if they don't do this enough, then they may get fired and lose the job. It can be so cutthroat. And I don't know from
Yeah.
my experience or if you feel that way, Angela, with the corporate world.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I could talk for hours about that. And yeah, obviously so I'm a psychic medium, but as you know, I've worked in the corporate world in sales my whole career. So there's a constant pressure of hitting your targets, and if you're only as good as your last month's sales figures, and it's all of that, and there's a constant stress and pressure, and I definitely feel that it takes a toll. I know that it's taken a toll on my menstrual cycle, and I got diagnosed with PMDD a few years back. I always had really bad PMS, but a few years back it was actually diagnosed as PMDD. And what I noticed is I took a holiday to Tanzania, and in that time, it was a fantastic trip. It was amazing. It was Tanzania and Zanzibar. I had so much fun, and during that time, I didn't get my PMDD, and I wasn't even taking my pills from the doctor or my herbal med. I wasn't taking any of it, and I didn't get that.
Mm.
And there've been other incidences where I haven't been under that much pressure and that much stress, and the PMDD just it goes away. So I feel like that's just testament to what you said. It's all about your environment.
Well, especially I know that you're a sensitive, right? And that is our superpower. And when it's getting overwhelmed, your nervous system, which is just your sensory system in a sense, is overwhelmed. You'll have been in that fight or flight mode when you're at work because you've got to
Yes.
produce, you've got to keep going. But that's not
Yeah.
the natural way of being, of living in the internal cycles of nature. And one thing to point out is women are really connected to the earth. And I know not everybody is, but in that corporate environment, you've not got nature around you. You've got four walls, not probably much light. You've got artificial light above you. It's
Yeah.
so unnatural and against everything that what we're meant to be around. And so if you're not following the inner cycles and rhythms within yourself as what nature is with the spring, summer, winter, autumn, then yes, it's your energy isn't going to go to regulating your period and producing a period. For me, I lost my periods at times in my life when I've been under so much stress, because when you're in that nervous system fight or flight mode, you've not got any other energy to use except for survival. And it can seem
Yeah.
quite like, oh, but what have you got to survive for? Because it's not like we're needing to go out and search for our food and we've not got a roof over our heads. But
Yeah.
the nervous system doesn't know the difference between being chased by a lion and being overwhelmed and stressed by work, which is what
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know.
Yes. And how long does it take to reset your nervous system, would you say?
I think it depends on how long throughout your life you have been in the fight or flight mode. And for some people, it can be years. And
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
a quick fix. You can't just take one deep breath and you're regulated, like as in if you've been in that fight or flight mode for a long time. But it's like slowly starting to, one by one, day by day, incorporate these little moments of self-care, breath work, whatever suits you. There's so many different tools you can use. That's when you'll start to see the daily progress. It's like anything, small steps make a bigger thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you also incorporate yin yoga in your sessions, don't you?
Yeah, that is my absolute passion and love. And I'll share a story with you actually, because
Yeah.
the reason why this came to me was because I was that girl that was still, even though I'd stopped doing dancing and went into yoga, I was still only wanting to do the power yoga, the vinyasa yoga, which is a lot more high intensity. And
Yeah.
I ended up winning a competition for this yoga retreat place where I could choose for free where I wanted to go and do a training. And the only reason why I took this specific training, which was actually yin yoga, I wasn't even really too bothered about yin yoga, was because it was 5 days long. And I only had 2 weeks at the time to go to Bali. And I thought, you know, I don't want to be confined the whole time. I want to go and explore and be free in my feminine essence and enjoy
Yeah.
where the flow takes me. And it genuinely changed my life because I learned about the yin, the yang, the black, the white, the opposites, how the seasons work and how our inner rhythms work. That, you know, we need the high level things of our energy, but we also need the downtime and the rest time.
Mm.
And we're not taught that. It's a very Chinese based medicine way of teachings. And so I came back to London and started teaching that, and it completely changed my life. And one woman that came to my yoga class, she was, I could tell she was quite flighty, is what I like to call it. I get some people coming into my yoga class and they're like, oh my God, I've just got here. Thank God I've made it. And I'm like, it's all right, you're here.
Calm down. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was the first time that I'd left oracle cards out on each mat, and she turned hers over, and you know she'd never even done this practice before. She just knew she needed to come to some relaxation, and she turned it over, and it said fertility, hope, and faith. And she starts crying. I'm about to start the class, and I'm like, oh, are you okay? She's like, yeah, I've been trying to conceive for 2 years, and this has just really given me a lot of hope. So of
Oh,
course, on one hand, I'm like, this is exciting, but also let's hope it happens. And
yeah.
yin is basically you're stretching, you're holding poses with props for 2 to 7 minutes, for those that don't know. And so you're just deeply relaxing while it's releasing the body, it's releasing the energetics of you as well. So the emotions that are stored in your bodies, the things that you can't really see in your aura field. And sometimes emotions can come through with that, which is just energy in motion, you're releasing, letting go. And she came for about 4 months and did a regular weekly practice with me. And I was speaking to her after class, and she's still not gotten pregnant, and she was trying through IVF. And I just said to her, I just feel like you need to stop IVF and just let it happen naturally. And she came back 2 weeks later and she was pregnant.
I love this story. I know I've heard it before, but it gives me goosebumps.
But I just think it's such a good example to share that it doesn't have to be complicated. Like she just
Mm,
did that one practice every week. It's an hour's practice. And within 4 months, it may, you know, that took her 4 months. It's not going to be the same for everybody. She was able to get deeply into that resting state, because when you're in the rest and digest, you're able to heal yourself. You're able to
got it.
actually allow healing to happen for you. So
Mm,
that's basically what I feel happened to her. And she was able to let go and just surrender. Because when you are more in that flighty mode, you want to control everything, and you're kind of like crippling,
yeah.
trying to hold on to things to feel safe. And
Yes.
yeah,
I
it's
can relate to
just
that. Yeah.
let go and let herself float down the river, and it happens. So I just hope that that gives people hope out there, because I know fertility and periods can be such a sensitive topic for women.
Yeah, I love that story. And yeah, it just goes to show when we are resting and we not constantly having to produce and hustle culture and all of that, things actually happen and things can start coming to us rather than the masculine energy, which is like go, 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 go out and action based. It's more the receptive energy that you teach as well.
Definitely, you need the yin and the yang, the opposites. So you need the
Yes.
masculine and the feminine, which we all have within us. The masculine and feminine energy, no matter what gender you are, we all have the polarizing energies within us. And yes, sometimes they don't always need to be in perfect balance, because if you need to provide for yourself, for example, I'm more of a masculine phase of my life right now because I'm creating and I'm producing, and if I wasn't, I'd be out in the forest just floating around, not getting anything done. And I just wouldn't be doing anything. I'd just be floating with whatever I wanted to do. So it is important to note that you don't always need to be fully in the feminine or fully in the masculine. Sometimes balance, sometimes a bit more of the other. But understanding that energy was a game changer for me because, again, it's not something that we're taught at school or anywhere.
No, no. And I think as well in the society we live in now with the system, the monetary system, more women are choosing to stay single, or they're putting off having babies, or they're deciding not to have babies. It does keep us more in the masculine, which is interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I have had moments of breakdown of like, we are just not supported enough in this world to thrive as women. We're really
Mm.
not. It is a patriarchal world, and it is, and everyone says it, the masculine is very outbalanced with the feminine, and we are slowly starting to see the balance, but it's still got a long way to go. But that's why I feel
Mm.
like the work that I'm doing right now is so important, because I used to think, oh, I can change the world somehow, and I don't know how. But this is what I feel is helping people, is doing that for myself and helping myself always take care of myself, making sure that I feel like I'm living a life that feels joyful and like lights me up from inside. Because I have
Mm.
been in situations still where I've not enjoyed my life or what's going on, and you just feel depressed, and the feminine doesn't like being suppressed or depressed. We want to
Yeah.
out there, and it's the
Yeah.
fear and the conditioning from the patriarchy that's really pushed us down. And this is the time that we're starting to actually rise and come out and shine. But we have to find ways that we can support ourselves to feel safe within our own bodies to be able to do that, because for so long we haven't felt safe.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like we said, it's harder more now than ever. So what tips would you recommend for someone that comes to you that's maybe worked in the corporate world for a long time, maybe has a very stressful sales career, is really burned out and in fight or flight mode? What kind of top tips would you give that person?
Well, first of all, you've got to realize, is this job that you're in the right job? Because if we look at this in a holistic approach, one thing that's off in your life will affect every single other thing in your life, from health.
Yeah,
And when you don't have your health specifically, how are you even going to go to work? How are you even going to survive and pay your bill?
yeah,
Your health is your number one priority. And if you aren't
yeah,
enjoying your work, then I think that is a massive thing. And it's also most of your life, right? And I think
yeah,
it's such a big thing for people to let go and make a change. But I just like to give hope out there to say there is always a way. There is always a way to change. And I think
yeah,
you can get quite kind of stuck in our ways and like, oh, but we don't know what's beyond the veil, like what's in front of us, and we don't scared
yeah,
comfort zone, which is why I think actually allowing yourself to receive support is important, whether that's
yeah,
therapy, whether that's a coach, whether that's just leaning on your family or your friends a little bit more at that time and saying, look, I'm burnt out, I really don't enjoy my job, life feels bleak, I need more support. And a lot of women do struggle to ask for support. We've been taught to, you know, look after the house years ago, and we were stay at home mums as well as take care of the children all day long, never asking, how's your well-being, how's your mental health, how are you? None of that was even talked about back in the day, and it's only a recent thing where people are actually asking, oh yeah, how's your mental health, because that is actually so important, your emotional health. So I would
yeah,
say starting to implement those feminine ways of asking for support, and it's even like I've just said, in the simplest of ways, looking back on your inner child as well. So I do a lot of inner child work, because if you're in a job that you're not enjoying, you need to bring some light back into your life, because again, if you've got too much darkness, you need to balance it out with the lightness. So
yeah.
remembering what you used to love doing as a child, bringing back that playfulness into your life naturally energizes you. Yin yoga, I would say, if you can't get out of your job straight away, finding those little things that can act as a bit of a crutch for now is what I like to say, but they're also tools that you'll take with you for life. Because if you got out of a job that you're not enjoying and you go straight into another one, you're still not going to have understood how to take care of yourself. You've not learned
Yeah.
a lesson from seeing, oh, I wasn't enjoying this, but I don't actually know what to do now. I'm in another job, you know?
Yeah. You've gone straight back into the same pattern.
Yeah, and that cycle will just continue to repeat until you learn the lesson. And
Okay.
you are, like I say, you're a sensitive being, which is amazing and wonderful. You need to find more balance within the masculine and the feminine. And you do obviously within your work, your psychic mediumship work, that is more of your feminine way. But I would say, where can you have days that you provide yourself? Maybe it's at the weekend, one day to just go with the flow of how you feel. And that will start to get you to connect even more into your intuition, which I know you're very connected to as well. But sometimes when we're in that fight or flight mode,
Mm,
we can't even hear what we
so
need.
true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
can have another day where it's like, right, I want to get my to-do list ticked off. Or you have a day where you've got one half of it as your feminine flow, let's just go out and enjoy myself, and one half getting things done, which is what I tend to do. So if I've got a to-do list in my day, I'll say, right, I just love a slow morning. I actually think it's important for women to have a slow morning because that really sets up your
Mhm.
day. So I'll go on a walk, I might have a bath, I'll take care of myself. And then the next half of the day, I'm getting my to-do list done. And I'm able to do
Yeah,
that because I'm like, I've had a lovely morning of doing what I want. I'm disciplined right now, and then I'm gonna just celebrate myself at the end of the day and go and do what I want. So there's so many different ways that you can do it, but yin yoga, I'd suggest for you feminine flow, inner child healing, bringing her back in. What does she want? How can you make her feel safe in your body? Um, and connecting to your womb space, which is within your cycle. And I know this can sound a bit weird for people, but I like to genuinely just place my hands on my womb sometimes in meditation, close my eyes, and just literally connect into that space because it is your womb and your feminine essence speaking to you when your periods are
mm,
missing, where you've got PMS. Ask her, oh, have I done too much this month? What do you need from me? So
yeah.
asking questions and the right questions is important as well.
That's so true. And there's this culture as well, and forgive me if I sound like a broken record, but of having to produce and do more. And actually less is more, you know. I truly feel that, and just talking to you kind of reinforces that. So
No, I
thank you.
agree with that. Coming back to simplicity, and what I like to say is coming back to that natural beauty that we have within us without needing to be this or do that, which we've been indoctrinated to think that we need to be more of ourselves, when actually
Yeah.
it's just our natural way of being, of what we intuitively knew how to be as a child, and what needs to be taught to us of how to connect with our cycles is the way that we need to come back to.
Absolutely. And with the cycles, how does it work then? So should we be doing in well, you know the phrases. So yeah, talk me through the cycle and what we should be doing.
So I always say that the most important part of your cycle is your menstrual cycle. Sorry, the period cycle, because when you're bleeding, you are
Yeah.
letting go of so much, and that's taking a lot of energy. So if you rest, and for most people it lasts around 3 to 7 days, if you're able to prioritize rest and stillness as much as you can during that time, then that's going to give you the energy for the rest of your cycle. And I know that that's not always realistic for people, so I know that that's difficult, but if you can do that, that is what's going to make every other part of your cycle so much more energizing. Because years ago, there were things called red tents. When you're on your period, you'd all come together. When you're on your period, you'd be supporting each other, you'd be taken care of. And so if you can't stop going to work, obviously, which is not a realistic thing, then ask for your partner, ask for a friend or a family member, can you cook me a meal tonight? Where can you
Mm.
receive that support? Then you go, and I like to call that the winter phase, if we're going with the phase of the cycles. And then you can go into your spring phase where you're starting to peek out of the tent like a bear out of hibernation, slowly making your way back out into the world, into this new being of what you've learned from the past month, because we do go through that death and rebirth cycle every month. And when you're shedding on your period, you're not just shedding blood, you're shedding your limiting beliefs, what you're ready to let go of, all of that stuff, emotions. Um, in your spring period, you still want to take it quite slow. So I wouldn't go straight away back into like hip workouts and all of that thing. I'd just take it a little bit easier with walking, yoga, gentle weights. And then when you come into ovulation, it's not the same for everybody, but some people feel a lot more out there and sociable. And so, yeah, just following what intuitively you feel right there. And then the last 2 weeks are when you're in your autumn phase, the luteal, which is the one that I talk about the most because it affects most women.
Yeah. So this is the PMS, right? This is right before, yeah. So
Um,
this is when most, well, myself at my worst.
yeah, me too. And even
Yeah.
if it don't get as bad anymore, there's still some weeks within my period where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've just got no energy today, and I just don't want to do anything. And I try and honor that as much as I can. But I do believe that it is that way because you've got a shorter fuse during that cycle. So this can tend to be where
Yeah.
women are fighting with their spouse because they're just trying to take it out on anyone, and it can ruin relationships, it can ruin a lot of your life. And so I do feel for those women. But if you follow the cycle of before, of resting on your period as much as you can
Got
and
it.
not doing any exercise except for gentle stretching, then the last half of your cycle you're gonna have saved more energy for that part, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like a man who just has unlimited energy throughout the weeks from morning to night, we have to slowly savor our energy, especially for those 2 weeks within the luteal phase. So there's no hit workouts on that week. It's being intuitive. If some days you've got energy, sure, go for it. But I would just, yeah, do walking, Pilates, low impact things that are not gonna wipe you out and put you into bed, which can happen, which we both know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you think that if you rest in that phase when you're on your period, that will lessen the PMS and the PMDD?
Yeah, well, obviously that's one factor of it. That's the main thing to take away from that is when you're on your period, rest, but then also making sure that your self-care and your self-talk and your self-kindness in your luteal phase is much higher, because we can be so much more self-critical to ourselves in that phase. And it's a lot
Got
easier
it.
to be nice to yourself when you're feeling great, right? But
Yeah.
the challenge is when it's feeling chaotic. And that is the challenge that
Yeah.
you have to rise to. How can you take care of yourself a lot more during the phase where you don't even want to? That's the challenge.
Very important. Oh, that's so, yeah, it all makes sense, and it's really simple, just following those seasons, the way you put it like that, the winter and then coming up to spring and things like that. But we're just not taught that. So
It's crazy that we're not taught that.
yeah, but it really is so simple. So thank you for breaking it down. And I'm really excited because you are starting your course that I have joined. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I will. So it's a lot of the things that we've talked about today, and it's specifically for sensitive, empathic women that feel such deep emotions. And a lot of the women that I've worked with in the past have struggled with depression, and which is basically just that suppression of your emotions that you need that space to release. And so it's an 8 week program, and it's called Natural Beauty because it's just unraveling every condition that's been placed upon us and coming back to remembering that beauty that we all have within us. So it's super a lovely space for women to come together and really support each other along this journey. So I like to see it mostly as like emotional support, connecting to your intuition with your cycle, learning nervous system regulation, connecting to your inner child, and allowing your dreams that are sometimes buried deep, deep within us to come back out again. But also so that you've learnt the tools and you feel as though you've got a support system to actually go out there and keep the transformation that you felt you've gone through within for those 8 weeks to actually start implementing into your life. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited that
I'm
you're doing it.
I'm so excited for it, and I think it's great as well for women to other women who may want to connect or going through various health issues in relation to PMDD and PMS and all of that. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Me
So
too.
if anyone is watching this and they want to get in contact with you for one-to-one coaching or want or any more information, how can they get in touch and how can they find out more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I was just going to say as well, the program starts on the 4th of November this time, but I will be running ones in the future as well.
Okay.
But usually it's Holly Charlotte Brown underscore on Instagram or hollycharlottebrown.co.uk for my website. Um, I've got a podcast as well called She Who Glows, and we talk a lot about feminism, or not feminism, but the way of the female and all of that kind of stuff that I think will be really helpful if people don't have the financials to invest in a coaching course right now to go and find some free resources. There's that on podcast, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts as well.
Thank you so much, Holly. I'm so excited about your course. I'm just going to ask you one more question just before I leave you today. What are your thoughts about feminism and the aspect that men shouldn't be holding doors open for women and we can have it all and we can do it all? And because I heard recently there was a story of a man who held the door open for a woman and she told him off for it. So I think this was in London somewhere, or she shouted at him, like, I can do it no, that was it. She was getting on the tube and he was like, after you, which I really like. I'm all over that. And she was like, no, I can do it myself. And this whole feminist movement. What's your take on that? I'm just really curious with the work that you do, what your thoughts are.
I think feminism has done its work in one way, but I think it also is turned some women into a too dependent, I hate women type of way, which is not what we want whatsoever. The way of the woman is to receive. So if someone's going to open a door for me, I'm going to take that and say thank you. Because if we're looking at it as in a traditional sense, I don't think that, like you say, a woman should be a stay-at-home mum and the man provide everything. There are ways that things can be different and in a more equal way right now, but we have to also acknowledge that we do have internal differences. The man is naturally more in the masculine. They're more wanting to provide. That's what makes them happy, usually, if we're talking in a general sense. And women usually love receiving. And if you don't, then maybe it's a wound that's maybe a bit triggered and something to look into, because who doesn't want to receive and be taken care of? Just because someone opens a door for you doesn't mean that they're going to take away your whole freedom. And I think that's been something that I've been trapped in the past. I was scared of, make if I got into a relationship and they just want to do everything that they want to do, I'm not going to be happy and free anymore. And it is a massive thing for women to feel free, to feel like they can express their voice and say how they feel. So like I say, I think it's done good in some parts, but I think we're slowly starting to see the traditional way come back a little bit, where it's like, we can allow the man to provide a bit more for us and we can lean a bit more into that feminine, because that's what we need. And we've been taught, no, a woman should be independent and they should do everything as well. Yes, we can do it all, but doesn't mean that we should have to, you know
Yeah. I
that's
completely, yeah, I completely agree with you on that. That's my thoughts entirely. And I also feel that we've created a society where we're trying to get the men to be like we've emasculated men. Um, so much so with all the woke movement that's going on, and turning women into men, and then that kind of confuses the whole like with the whole transgender movement of telling children, oh, you can be a guy, and asking them if they want to change sex. I mean, personally, I just think it's absolutely crazy, and I'm very anti-woke, and I will have my hold my hands up and say it. I think it's wrong. So I'd be curious to see your take on that, like
Yeah.
making men, turning men into women and
Mm.
emasculating them.
It's not something I've delved too much into and looked into just because it's not been a direct thing for me with clients specifically. But I do think that, we do have certain roles for a reason of, I'm a female and I'm more inclined in this way. But I know that some men or some women don't feel that way and they do feel little bit different. So I do also accept that if they want to be a certain way, then that's that. But I do also believe that God has given who we are and who we're meant to be. And
Yeah,
I do think it's helped with the movement of being able to do and be whatever you want and express yourself in any way. I love that side of it, but it's causing a lot of confusion between a lot of people, which I don't think's that great.
that's it. And just to clarify, just to kind of backtrack, I'm not anti-transgender at all. I mean children, confusing children when they don't, and encouraging puberty blockers and changing sex and stuff like that at a really young age, I think is morally wrong. But the transgender thing, I've got nothing, that's absolutely fine if they want to transition. But I also feel, and I have to say this, that we have different energies. We have, some women can be more masculine, and that's okay. Like my energy, I would say, not all the time, but is quite masculine. And it doesn't mean that I want to go out and transition and become a man. And I think that's what we need to clarify.
100%. And I think children shouldn't be pressured to make a decision, at least until they're a bit more of a conscious age where they understand the world a little
Yeah.
bit more. But also with women, we aren't always exactly more in our feminine, like you say, or more in our masculine. I think it's
Yeah.
beautiful that we have such different and polarizing energies or whatever you want to be. But biologically, some people have different genitals to the male, to the female, like we don't all
Yeah.
have, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So biologically, that's what we've been given. And
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice if we could feel empowered with whatever we've been given by God and
Yeah.
to run with that, but also still express who we want to be in whatever way we want.
Yes, absolutely agree with you. So I just had to ask your take on that. So,
No,
and just because it's so aligned with the work that you do.
yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for coming on, Holly. It's such a joy and a pleasure to talk to you this evening, as always. Thank you.
It was so nice. I really feel honoured to have had this conversation with you today and so grateful that we connected this year. And it was just lovely to chat with you.
Oh,
So thank you.
me too. Me too. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye.